Try to imagine that your presence in your family wasn't the result of coincidence. What if your parents, your brothers and sisters, even those you've clashed with, were part of an ancient, invisible agreement? Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, taught that every soul decides ahead of time where and with whom it will incarnate. This choice is not made at the moment of conception, but well before it, after death, during the soul's transition period before returning to a new life. In that in-between state, the soul evaluates which lessons remain unfinished, which relationships need mending, and what kinds of experiences will help it evolve. Cayce's most remarkable claim was that souls gravitate toward those they have known before, sometimes through deep love, other times through conflict and pain. The person who is your father now might have once been your son. An enemy could return as your sibling. A stranger in this life might have once saved your life. Cayce insisted this isn't fantasy. It's part of a greater spiritual cycle, where souls grow through love, challenge, and the power of conscious choice. His most mysterious readings describe this process with vivid detail. This video dives into one of Edgar Cayce's most extraordinary and applicable revelations: how the soul makes its family choice after death. We'll explore what happens to awareness between incarnations, how specific factors influence the soul's decision, and why karmic debts pull us into particular family dynamics. We'll also consider whether understanding your soul's choice can reshape your present and your future. According to Cayce, people aren't just the result of DNA. They're travelers across lifetimes, returning to old connections to complete emotional, spiritual, and moral lessons. The soul doesn't look for comfort. It seeks meaning. Cayce described how, once the soul leaves the physical body, it enters levels of higher awareness, where it must face what was and what still needs to be done. It's from within this non-physical realm that the soul chooses who to return to, what role to play, perhaps as a child, a rival, or a teacher, and what lesson must now be learned. The purpose of this message is to help you see your current life from a broader, elevated perspective, the same one your soul used when it made its choice. At the start of the 20th century, Edgar Cayce became a widely discussed figure in the growing world of spiritual inquiry and psychic phenomena. Despite having little formal education, he would enter trance states and deliver astonishingly precise readings, offering insights on health, emotional trauma, reincarnation, and the evolution of humanity. He frequently spoke of what happens in the space between lives, the realm the soul enters after death, but before a new birth. Cayce claimed that the soul doesn't simply drift into a heavenly realm or cease to exist. Instead, it enters a unique dimension of heightened consciousness, where it reflects deeply on its past emotions, actions, and patterns. This place is not a dream or unconscious void. It's clear and deliberate. Here, the soul reviews what happened and what still must happen. It's in this sacred pause that the next incarnation begins, not just a random time or place, but a conscious decision about which family to enter. According to Cayce, this is a spiritual strategy based on karma, emotional memory, unfinished stories, and the need for balance. He described all of this long before mainstream science considered reincarnation seriously. For Cayce, the soul wasn't just an abstract force or spark of life. It was a structured, living awareness that contained intention, memory, and purpose. After leaving the physical world, the soul doesn't fade into nothingness. It enters a profound phase of reflection. It connects with what Cayce referred to as the Akashic Records, an energy field that holds the complete record of every soul's journey. Within this vast archive, the soul sees clearly which roles it has played, where pain still exists, where apologies were never made, and where love was never offered. It's based on this expanded understanding that the next incarnation begins to take shape. Cayce said the soul doesn't simply think about who to return to, it feels it. Sometimes the pull is toward families with difficult pasts. Other times, the soul is needed to offer support or love to someone it once harmed, or who harmed it. It may even seek out pain or betrayal again if that's what will help it grow. According to Cayce, soulmates don't always arrive as allies. They can come back as our greatest challenges. That's why our families may feel like blessings or emotional mirrors, reflecting back everything unresolved in us. The soul does not enter a new life by accident. According to Cayce, the process of selecting one's family begins before physical incarnation, during what he called the interlife preparation phase. In this period, the soul isn't simply resting or drifting. Instead, it conducts a detailed review of everything that occurred in its last life. Which relationships were left incomplete, what emotional harm it may have caused, and what areas require reconciliation and growth. This isn't divine punishment, it's spiritual awareness. The soul becomes conscious of other souls it's still entangled with, those it loved, hurt, or failed. It feels the magnetic pull of unfinished business, and this resonance draws it to a particular family. Not because it's easy, but because it offers a precise opportunity. That opportunity may be to heal a wound, relive a pattern, or finally change a response. Often, the soul returns to the same lineage, but plays a different role. A former father becomes a son. Someone who once inflicted pain may come back needing care. Cayce referred to this as the law of correspondence, a spiritual rule that says everything returns to where it can evolve. Families, then, aren't just shared genes, they're energetic knots, and the soul chooses exactly the one that contains its next step. Cayce stated that the soul not only selects the family it will join, it also plays a part in the moment of conception itself. From its place in the subtle realms, the soul observes the emotional and energetic bond forming between two people. It's not drawn to them randomly, but in response to a vibrational match, a resonance that signals the possibility of essential experience. The soul perceives, through these people, with their unique lives, struggles, patterns, and wounds, it can fulfill a very specific mission. Even in cases where a child seems to be a surprise, an accident, or unwanted, Cayce insisted that, from a spiritual standpoint, the timing is exact. The soul often hovers in the energetic space around the future mother or father, watching and waiting for the right moment. If a pregnancy doesn't proceed, the soul may return later, perhaps in the same family, perhaps in another, but always with the same purpose. That's why many parents, especially mothers, report feeling the presence of a child before any physical signs appear. Cayce taught, the soul arrives long before birth. It prepares the space, energetically, for what's to come. One of Cayce's most powerful and challenging ideas was the concept of soul agreements, what he called spiritual contracts made before birth. He taught that souls form clear, mutual understandings about the roles they will play in each other's lives. These aren't written in words, but are deep soul-level intentions formed in a state of complete awareness. The soul sees what it still must experience and chooses partners who can help fulfill those lessons. These contracts aren't always based on love or harmony. In fact, they may involve pain, conflict, or challenge. A soul may agree to be born to someone it once betrayed, or someone who betrayed it. Another may come as a child whose purpose is to inspire, disrupt, or awaken a parent. Cayce emphasized, these agreements are not about making life smooth. They are about triggering transformation. That's why families sometimes seem chaotic, unfair, or emotionally hard to bear. According to Cayce, this doesn't mean the plan failed. It may mean the contract is being fulfilled. And the more painful the relationship, the more critical the growth. These spiritual contracts often unfold as hard lessons, not happy stories, but they move the soul forward faster than comfort ever could. Cayce explained that families don't only function as platforms for karmic work, they act as spiritual mirrors. The people closest to us aren't just reflections of who we are. They bring out what we would otherwise never confront. The soul intentionally enters environments where its unresolved fears, attachments, desires, and wounds will be triggered. That's why emotional intensity is highest in family settings. The soul chooses the exact conditions where its shadows will be activated. A rigid father, a distant mother, a jealous sibling. These are not arbitrary roles. They are reflections of what the soul still carries. And these relationships become crucibles for transformation. The purpose isn't to escape them, but to ask, why am I here with these people? What part of me are they showing me? What needs to be healed, forgiven, expressed? Cayce believed that within every painful family dynamic lies a key to awakening. When we begin to view our families as intentional spiritual settings, rather than accidental burdens, we can begin to unlock those keys. According to Cayce, families are more than just places of karmic testing. They are also sources of inner power. It's through interactions with those closest to us that the soul rediscovers itself. Cayce emphasized that every family carries not only emotional history, but energetic imprints, subtle, invisible strands that transmit not just love, but fear, guilt, shame, hope, and longing. The soul is drawn to where these energies are familiar, whether to bring a chapter to an end or to begin a new one. That means some souls choose to return to families where conflict or pain is present, not as punishment, but because those very conditions will activate inner strength. Cayce referred to this as spiritual geometry, a precise configuration in which every figure, parent, child, sibling, even distant relatives, has a purpose in the soul's growth. Sometimes the task is survival. Other times it's awakening, or learning to give love where it's been missing. Even situations of abandonment or separation, he said, serve a spiritual function. Everyone the soul meets within the family becomes a part of its deeper path, not just to endure, but to evolve. Cayce taught that the soul's attraction to a specific family is often rooted in past life experiences, especially those left unresolved. The soul naturally gravitates toward people with whom it once had unfinished emotional stories. These might be people it hurt, abandoned, loved deeply, or betrayed. They might not have been family members before. They could have been romantic partners, close friends, rivals, or spiritual teachers. But in this life, they return as parents, children, or siblings. That's why some relationships feel inexplicably intense from the beginning. A strange bond, deep affection, or immediate conflict. It's the soul remembering what the conscious mind cannot. Family tensions that seem to have no cause often stem from emotional history that spans lifetimes. Cayce called this incarnational memory, the soul's ability to recognize familiar energy, even when the outer form has changed. He believed that most of our most important relationships aren't new. They're chapters in a much older story. The soul comes back to say what wasn't said, to forgive what wasn't forgiven, and to transform what was never healed. In this sense, being born into a family isn't the beginning. It's a continuation of something far older and deeper. Cayce also explained that souls often return repeatedly within the same family lineage, switching roles but continuing the connection. These are what he referred to as repeating soul cycles. Within such families, a special energy field forms, either heavy with generational trauma or strengthened by repeated lessons of resilience and love. A soul might return as the grandchild of someone it once parented, or as the parent of someone who had once been its sibling. These cycles aren't symbolic. They serve a direct purpose. In these families, we often see children with inexplicable wisdom, strange phobias, or powerful emotional ties to certain elders. These signs, Cayce said, are echoes of the soul's previous incarnations. When a soul re-enters the same family line, it doesn't just continue its own journey. It helps shift the evolution of the entire bloodline. It may return to break destructive cycles, to fulfill an ancient vow, or to resolve a karmic debt left untouched for generations. And the tighter the emotional knot, the more likely the soul will return again. Because anything left undone calls us back, not to repeat, but to complete. But the soul's journey isn't always about returning to the familiar. Cayce described how, after resolving certain karmic ties, the soul may choose an entirely different family, a new setting, new culture, even a different social class. These are not random choices, but deliberate departures from past patterns. A soul might select a family that challenges it in unfamiliar ways, through contrast in beliefs, temperament, or spiritual understanding. Feeling like an outsider, Cayce taught, is sometimes the mark of a soul that came to bring change. In these cases, the soul carries a new energy meant to shift the dynamic of that lineage. Like a catalyst introduced to alter the whole equation, the soul's presence alone begins the transformation. Even if love seems absent, or if the family doesn't understand them, the soul may be fulfilling a mission that only makes sense from a higher vantage point. Cayce emphasized, not fitting in doesn't mean something is wrong. It often means something greater is unfolding. These choices mark the transition from karmic entanglement to conscious purpose. The soul isn't just reacting to old wounds, it's stepping into the role of creator. According to Cayce, the soul doesn't just choose its family, it also glimpses future events and willingly agrees to face them. He taught that before incarnation, the soul sees not only key turning points, but also the potential pain ahead: illness, grief, rejection, or isolation. And still, it says yes. From a human perspective, this might seem harsh or even cruel. But from the soul's elevated view, these experiences are seen as sacred opportunities for growth. A soul might choose parents who are unable to love, or family members who will never fully understand them, not as punishment, but as a way to evolve beyond previous limits. Cayce reassured that no soul takes on more than it has the strength to handle. Each life's trials are matched to what that soul is ready to overcome. Even the most difficult beginnings, a cold home, an absent parent, a traumatic loss, hold within them a divine blueprint. Cayce often said, "Don't curse your challenges, study them, because more often than not, they were written into your plan before your very first breath." For Cayce, the deepest point of the soul's return is not simply the family it chooses, but the mission it brings with it. This mission is more than a role. It's a vibration, a direction, a silent truth around which the new life will form. That central intention is what draws the soul towards certain people. A soul that comes to learn compassion will be born among those who struggle to give it. A soul seeking patience may find itself surrounded by chaos. A soul learning forgiveness may enter a family marked by generations of harm. These placements are not errors, they are sacred arrangements. Cayce emphasized that even the most average-seeming life is part of a greater design, one the soul understands even when the person does not. When someone begins to sense that their family is more than coincidence, that it reflects their inner spiritual task, something changes. Resistance gives way to realization, and in that recognition, healing begins. Because if the soul chose these people, it also chose the strength to face what they would awaken, and to meet it with awareness instead of avoidance. At the heart of Edgar Cayce's message is not a demand to believe in reincarnation, but a call to remember our own power. We are not victims of random birth. We are souls who have made choices, conscious, purposeful, and deeply personal. We selected our families, not for comfort, but for evolution. Cayce taught that the soul doesn't avoid difficulty. It embraces it as the path to wholeness. The moment of choosing a family, he said, is one of the most conscious acts a soul makes. In that timeless space, the soul sees the entire map, its past, its present, and what is still to come. It steps forward not in fear, but with clarity. That may be why family pain cuts so deep, and why forgiveness within families is so hard. It touches something eternal. When you look into the eyes of your parents, your children, your siblings, you're looking into the eyes of old agreements, past debts, and spiritual promises. Love, Cayce said, is not just something you receive, it's something you choose again and again. And when you remember that you chose this life, this path, and these people, you begin to reclaim your power to transform it all. If what Edgar Cayce taught is true, then you are far more than a body born into circumstance. You are a soul who arrived here with intention. You didn't land in your family by mistake, even if they've hurt you, even if you don't belong, even if they've never truly seen you. You chose them for a reason your spirit understood before your mind was even formed. Cayce believed that remembering the reason for your birth is the beginning of real freedom. And freedom begins when you stop blaming others and start asking deeper questions. What am I here to learn? What am I here to heal? Who am I meant to become through these very relationships? Because within every difficult bond lies a spiritual blueprint. And once you begin to see it, your family becomes more than history. It becomes your initiation. If this message resonates, leave a like. It helps more people find what has long been forgotten. Subscribe to After All, where we explore what exists beneath the surface, and share in the comments. Do you believe your soul chose your family? And if so, why?